Hi, it's your $2 Tuesday movie critic here today, and I'm going to be reviewing the movie Gone Girl. Now, full disclosure, when I initially saw the title, and this was before seeing any previews, only seeing that it starred Ben Affleck, I thought it was going to be a sequel to the movie Gone Baby Gone, because it was I wanted a sequel to that movie because I just did not like the ending. Even though it was realistic, Gone Baby Gone, I did not like it. But I loved the movie. I still love the movie. So that's what I thought it was. Of course, it was not. It had nothing to do with Gone Baby Gone, except for, the word gone. But I will get back to that in a few minutes, because I think it does. First, let's just talk about the movie Gone Girl. This movie was excellent. The previews gives nothing away. And all you know is that this is about a couple, a married couple, where the wife mysteriously disappears. And as the movie goes on, we're trying to figure out, along with the husband, along with the cops, along with everyone involved, what is behind this disappearance. This movie is just, the more you get into it, the more you find out things. Instead of it helping you to understand it more, you get more questions. You're like, what? I know, I was doing that all throughout the movie. I was like, oh my God, what? And it just left me with more questions. But the movie was excellent. I really, really loved Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike, who played Nick and Amy Elliott. These two had such chemistry, whether it was, the married couple, the loving married couple, the angry married couple, the conflicted married couple, whatever. They were in it to win it. And, oh my gosh, and Rosamund Pike, this woman, she is like, wow. She doesn't, her and Ben Affleck are like really equal when they're together. But when she's by herself or when she's in the scene with someone else, she just steals the scene. And she just does this excellent job. I've never heard of this woman before this movie. I don't know if I've ever seen her anything before. If I have, I don't remember. Her face looks familiar, but that's it. But she does an excellent job. This movie is so great. It's like the mystery that I love. You're figuring out things for the most part as everyone else is figuring them out. And even when you know more, as they learn more, you're still trying to figure out what the heck is going on. But it's in a good way. I love this movie. I simply loved it. It goes into the thriller / mystery type genre. It's not really an action movie. I did like, how the other supporting characters came in and their roles were very pivotal to the story. You had Carrie Coon, who plays Margot Dunn, as Nick calls her, Go. It took me a while to figure out what was he calling her, Go or Goat, but it was actually Go. So I never heard that type of nickname before. So anyway, Go. And she's Nick's sister, and they have a very deep connection, as you see throughout the movie. She's the one that he leans on, and boy, she does a really good job of that supporting role of that sister too. And then there is Neil Patrick Harris, who plays Desi Collins, who happens to be a past boyfriend of Amy. And oh my gosh, in the beginning, when you first meet him in the movie, his role is not so important. He's mentioned before you actually see him, and then once you see him, the more he comes out in the movie, the more his role becomes pivotal as well. And again, excellent job. Of course, it's Neil Patrick Harris, so you wouldn't expect anything less. And it's a different role than I'm used to seeing him play. And he does it very, very well. I have to say, it's really creepy. So, yeah. And then there's Tyler Perry, who plays the attorney Tyler Bolt. Now, his role is also, you don't really see him until maybe the latter part of the movie. And again, he does a good job. He's the attorney for Nick, and he's trying to help Nick out because, as things go forward, Nick is not doing a good job. He is definitely not the guy that you want to be in the public eye, because everything that he should be he's doing just the opposite. So the attorney comes in and tries to help him to steer the public in his direction, or on supporting his side of things, as they're still trying to figure out why his wife disappeared. Because as you know, as is logical in most whodunit cases, when a spouse goes missing, after a while goes by and nothing's found out, normally the spouse that's still there gets blamed one way or the other, especially if it's the husband. So the attorney comes in to try to help Nick out, because Nick is really just very emotional throughout the whole thing. And the more you learn about Nick, even, you kind of start to question, okay, did this guy do this? Or did this guy have something to do with the disappearance of his wife or not? So it's a really great movie. I love it. I really did. I enjoyed it. I didn't care too much for the ending. Yeah, it was great. It was realistic, or whatever you want to say, but it was just like, really? This is it? But it wasn't those type of endings, or like you were like, okay, I just wasted 2 hours of my life, because this is a very long movie, but it's worth it. I think it would have been more worth it if it had been an ending that I liked. But it was totally worth it, yeah. Everybody, the whole cast is really great in this. I actually also like the supporting role of the detective, the female detective, and the male detective that are looking at the case, because they kind of like give the perspective of maybe the person that's trying to look at things objectively, and then the other person that's looking at things subjectively. And the female detective is the objective person, whereas the male detective is the subjective person. And it's really cool how they come in there with that, and they bring that dynamic to the movie. So everybody, there are no little parts in this movie. Everybody's part is really great. I would definitely not suggest it for any kids. This is definitely an adult movie. I wouldn't even want teenagers to go see this movie. Definitely an adult movie. It's rated R for a reason. There is nudity. There is a lot of gore to it. Well, not a lot of gore, but let's just say when the gore is there, it's there. And you don't want kids to be witness to that stuff. Where you normally see Ben Affleck as a good guy that comes in to save the day or do something, he's actually the guy that you're wondering, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And you're wondering that for most of the movie. And even after you find out more, you're still kind of wondering that, right? So his role, I think, in this movie, you get to see him in a different dynamic, really. And I liked it. I really liked it. So if you like your mysteries, if you like a good thriller, if you like the movie Gone Baby Gone, which I think is kind of like the same premise, even though in Gone Baby Gone it was a little girl that disappeared mysteriously, and they're trying to figure out what happened to her, and it's the mother that, people are looking at on whether she had something to do with the disappearance or not as things go on. I still believe it was the same premise, and when I watched that movie, I had the same feeling like, this is how you're going to end it? It wasn't the ending that I wanted, but it was a realistic ending. So, but I couldn't go with that as an old school movie because Gone Baby Gone came out in 2007. So I couldn't go with that as an old school movie. So I did want to at least give you guys a movie that kind of like really compares to Gone Girl. Even though it's not the same girl, it is definitely the same premise. And so if you like Gone Baby Gone, you will definitely like Gone Girl. Okay, so the old school movie that I am going to compare this to, they're not exactly like Gone Girl. and there were like a few similarities to them, but it doesn't go with the same premise. I will say that, but they came as close as I can get when I was trying to find old school movies. Most of the movies that I found that really came close to Gone Girl were movies that were made too recent to call them old school movies. So, these are the movies that I came up with, though. The first movie is the movie called Cellular, and this what came out back in 2004. This stars Kim Basinger as Jessica Martin, Chris Evans as Ryan, the guy that actually answers the cell phone to try to help her in the situation, Richard Burgi as Craig Martin, her husband, William H. Macy as Sergeant Bob Mooney, who's like on his last day of retirement and kind of gets pulled into this case because of circumstances that happen. And then Jason Statham, who is Ethan, which is, you can call him bad guy number one. So he plays really pretty much a bad guy in this movie. So the reason I compare it to Gone Girl is because, again, the wife disappears, but everybody knows that the wife is kidnapped in this movie. So it wasn't a mysterious disappearance. She was kidnapped. The mystery comes in is why she was kidnapped. You know, because when she's initially kidnapped in the movie, because that's like the first scene of the movie, pretty much after she puts her son on the bus, she goes back in to start her day, and then all of a sudden these guys come into the house, kill the housekeeper, and take her hostage. And then she's like, what's going on? You know, because she thinks they're going to kill her, but they don't. They take her hostage. And she doesn't know what's going on, why they're taking her. Nobody knows this, you know, even the people watching the movie like myself. And we're wondering, why has she been taken? You know, who wanted her to be taken? Because if it was just these guys, then they would have killed her or done what they were going to do or whatever the case may be while they had her in the house. But they took her to a whole different location. So there's obviously another reason other than just, you know, something instinctive where they're just trying to rob a house or something like that. And then the other mystery behind this is she is married and she does have a son, but when after they take her hostage and put her away and things like that, they go and get the son. They never mention the husband at all. So then you're wondering, okay, does this husband have something to do with her being kidnapped? So it's the mystery is there. And then of course I love Kim Basinger in this movie because she really does, you know, take a pivotal role in what happens to her. I mean, she's a little waif of a woman. She's very, very feminine, but in every situation, she tries to thwart the kidnappers or tries to find some way to help her family get out of the situation. And she does her best. She isn't always successful, but she does her best. And I really love her in this movie for this. It's not like one of those movies where, just like in Gone Girl, where you see these people and you have them kind of like when you look at them put in these roles that you think they belong in, and then you find out they're nothing like you think they are. Simply because you know a little bit about them based on what the movie shows you. But then as the movie goes on, you see that they're just not the same characters. The same as in Kim Basinger's role as Amy. She's a woman that, you know, she's a school teacher. She's, like I said, very feminine. She's a little bitty thing, and, you know, these people have taken her captive. She doesn't know what's going on, and instead of going into hysterics or breaking down into a pool of tears, she composes herself and she tries to figure out what's going to be her next move. And she always tries to figure out what's going to be her next move, and she goes for it and she has to think quick on her feet because she doesn't have a lot of time and she doesn't know what's going on. So, you know, so you have this mystery just like in Gone Girl, where nobody knows initially why, including herself, knows why she's being kidnapped. Only, of course, the kidnappers know. And the more, just like in Gone Girl, the more you find out about her kidnapping, the more questions you have, because it's like, really, this is it, this is what's going on. And I did love the ending in Cellular. And it was, yeah, okay, it was a cliche ending, but it was a good ending still. And I love the role of William H. Macy. He kind of played the role as the detective in Gone Girl, where they're both like the objective people in here. They see something happening, and of course the way it looks, like in William H. Macy, this guy comes in, which is the guy Chris Evans, which he plays Ryan, comes into the police station saying, okay, I got this woman on the line, and she's saying she's being kidnapped. And, you know, he gives her his name, and he kind of like tries to help out. Doesn't work out the way he plans, but then he says, okay, I'm going to do some more, you know, to help. And then, you know, the way things look, he later figures out they're not the way they seem, but because he stays objective through the whole thing and doesn't try to, you know, necessarily judge, when he finds out more evidence, he doesn't necessarily go to the easy answer. He goes to the, you know, what else could possibly be going on here. His role was also pivotal, just like in Gone Girl. These small supporting roles of these people were very, very pivotal to the story. So that's how I compared those two. My other old school movie, and this is more old school, was the movie Breakdown that came out in 1997. It stars Kurt Russell as Jeff Taylor, Kathleen Quinlan as Amy Taylor, his wife, J.T. Walsh as Warren Red Bar, the truck driver, and MC Gainey as Earl, just your all-around redneck in a small town. So the story starts as this couple, Jeff and Amy, are driving, going cross-country road trip, you know, and they get into this small town. You know something's bad whenever big city folk end up in a small town. And so what ends up happening through a series of circumstances is Jeff's wife, Amy, ends up disappearing mysteriously. Now, when you see this movie, you realize, along with Jeff, there are only a number of things that could have happened to her because of the situation. And so he tries his best to keep a calm head to figure out, okay, there had to be like maybe some miscommunication somewhere. And so he goes back and tries to figure it out. But then the people that could help him end up making things even more confusing. And so he's like, okay, there's something more going on here. And unlike, you know, Gone Girl, even though the wife mysteriously disappears, it's not so mysterious that you can't put two and two together. And initially, he doesn't know what happens. He only knows what he thinks happens, just like the husband in the movie Gone Girl. But unlike the movie Gone Girl, with the movie Breakdown, Jeff gets, the more he learns, the more answers he gets. But there is another situation where he doesn't know who he can trust. You know, it's a mystery as to who he can trust, but because everyone that he's trusted thus far has ended up making things worse. So now he's at the point where, you know, he has to get his wife back, but he doesn't know what to do next. And so he realizes the only person he can trust is himself, and he goes about doing it that way. This movie is cool because I really did forget how big of a rock star Kurt Russell was back in the day. You know, and he was the go-to action guy for movies like this. And he does the same thing in this movie that he did in most movies, where he's the hero and he goes looking for his wife, and things don't always go the way he expects them to. But in the end, he kind of like solves the mystery, so to speak. And, you know, and so pretty much the way that it is similar to Gone Girl is the mysterious disappearance of the wife and then the husband tries to figure out what happens, and then the law enforcement that there ends up kind of almost blaming the husband for the situation because they go in without actually looking at things from an objective point of view. They just see what's happening and they're saying, okay, this isn't right. But then later on, it's kind of like the sheriff is on his side, but it's a little bit too late, too little too late after that. So this is a really good movie for action. It's not much of a mystery, honestly, but it is definitely a lot of action, a lot of wrestling and fighting and stuff like that. So it's good for that, but it's not much of a mystery, except for like maybe in the beginning, and even then, like I said, it's only a matter of one or two things that could have actually happened to her. And so, yeah. So, they're not the best similarities I've done. Actually, these are probably the worst similarities I've done to a new movie for old school movies. But this was a very good movie. Unfortunately, most of the comparisons that occurred, like I said, they weren't old enough to be considered old school movies. But I hope you like it. If you have some movies that you think could have better compared to Gone Girl that are old school movies, please let me know at the bottom of the screen. And I will see you next time. Thank you.